Hi, my name's Traci Cornelius. I'd like to welcome you to Get Creative with Traci. Today's tutorial is going to be on how to make a card such as this. It's been a very popular one with my customers. So some of the products that you're going to need is we've got some very vanilla cardstock with Midnight Muse. I'm using the Print Poetry Designer Series paper. We've got some little of the basic rhinestones, Midnight Muse ink. We're going to use a Just For You sentiment, and we're going to create a bit of an interesting background with the colour spritzer. The other product that we're going to use is the Elegant Butterfly Punch. So first of all, let's punch out our butterflies. So the first one we want to do is make sure that the writing is the right way up. Taking your punch and then punching out one of the butterflies, and we're going to use this section of the paper to create the interesting detail that we've got at the top. So taking your Stampin trimmer, just line it up and go to the edge of the butterfly, and that's exactly where you're going to cut, and just go straight the way up. I find it a little easier to put the majority of the paper up against the butt bar, so I'm just going to turn that around, line it up again, so I've just got the tip of the wing at the cutting section and go straight down. And as you can see, that's now created that little section that we're going to have at the top. Now because I'm using this paper, and I want to make sure that the writing is always the right way round, I now need to punch butterfly upside down. And that means that when I cut this section out, the writing is going to be the right way up. Obviously, if you're using a generic pattern that isn't position sensitive, then you wouldn't need to do that step. So again, I'm just lining up the tips of the wings. And there we go. Now I only want one of these butterflies for our card, and then I'm going to use a corresponding or a coordinating piece. So again, I'm just going to position the butterfly as to where I want it. I want a bit more blue in that one, so moved it at the last minute. So we'll punch it there, and then you want two of these. So the cardstock that we're just using a C6 card blank. So this is an A5 piece of very vanilla, which is then folded in half. The next mat that we're putting over the top is from the Midnight Muse, and this is just so that we can frame the card nicely, and that measures 10 centimetres by 14.4 centimetres. And then the next mat that we've got over the top again is very vanilla, and that one measures 9.5 centimetres by 13.9 centimetres. So I'm just going to use the mat for a moment, and this is where you can play around with the composition. So you can see that adding these ones on, it is very pretty, but it does look a little bit plain. There isn't a lot of difference between the very vanilla and our little butterflies, and that's why I want to create a background effect. So this is our colour spritzing tool, and I'm using the crumb cake Stampin' Right marker, and that's because there's crumb cake on the actual butterfly. I didn't want to use blue because I didn't want the blue to be too overpowering. So basically you just pop that into your colour spritzer, line it up so that the edge is just over the top, and then screw into place. Now if you've not used one before, then try it out on your grid paper first. The closer that you go, you might have to prime it just a little bit. The closer that you go, the larger the kind of blobs. The more that you go out, the finer the spray. Okay, so I'm just going to bring that one in, and I'm just going to spray this all over. I want quite a fine spray. You can see it gives such a pretty effect, and it's very subtle. This isn't a lot, But even if just that tiny bit, can you now see how much that adds and means that the butterflies will stand out? So I'm just going to add a little bit more. If you wanted to add a little bit more contrast, you could put in a bit of green as well, but I'm just going to stick with the crumb cake. So I just want to add a bit more. Until I'm happy. You can basically play around with this as much as you want. It's much better to do a little bit and then keep adding than to try and put loads on all at once. Okay, so I'm just going to pop the lid back onto the pen. And now you can play around with the composition again, so you can just see how I've added a little bit more. Excuse Grace in the background. And at this point you also want to be working out where you want to position everything. So for example, you might want to have the butterflies fairly close together, or you might want them to be a little bit further apart. So play around with it until you're happy. Just going to see to Grace. So sorry about that. Okay, so this is where it's really handy to have some grid paper, because it means that you can line everything up as to where you might want it. So I'm going to be using snail adhesive. You could use your Anywhere glue sticks, or you could use Tombow glue, but it's really down to personal preference. So I'm leaving my butterflies and everything else in place, and I'm just going to move that one so I know that it's perfectly straight. And I'm going to do the same on the bottom. So I can just line this one up, again making sure that it's straight, and then that means that I can go ahead and position the butterflies. Now with the butterflies I tend to use a bit of the Tombow glue because it means that I can just adhere the centre and then lift the wings up. So I'm just going to bend the wings up already and use my bone folder to curl over the wings. And this just helps it to look a little bit more realistic. If you're like me and you keep your Tombow flat, you might have to basically move the glue down a little bit. And then what I tend to do is I try to line up the centre with the centre of the paper. And then I'm going to do the same with this butterfly as well. So again, just curl the wings with your bone folder. Now again, it's up to you how you want to do the middle butterfly. You can have it completely flat, or you can have it raised as I've got it on this one. It really is entirely up to you. You can again play around with it, put it flat, see if you like it. Raise up the wings a bit and see if you like that. I'm going to have mine slightly raised, but I'm not going to curl the wings. So again, I'm just going to glue into the centre. Line it up with the other two, and then press down. Now with the overlap, you can either fold it over and adhere that down, or you can just use your scissors to cut it off. So once you've trimmed off the excess, that means now you're ready to pop it onto the card and then do the greeting. So you can see that it's beginning to come together. So I'm just going to add some snail on, and this means that it can then adhere to the mat. Again, I want to make sure that I'm leaving a pretty even border all the way around. If you're not very confident with this, then using the Anywhere glue sticks means that you do have a little bit of time to be able to rearrange it. So you can see, and then again we're going to pop this one onto the card blank. Again, you want to make sure that you've got pretty much an even border all the way around. Pop your wings back up, and now you can begin to finish it with some rhinestones. Going to take the rhinestones off with the paper snips. And again, entirely up to you whether you want them to go all in the centre or whether you want to add a couple. So I'm just going to line all of these up and put them onto all 3 butterflies. So I've gone ahead and added the rhinestones. My middle one is slightly different. I've done a slightly larger rhinestone at the very, very top. Now I was going to be stamping the Just For You in the Midnight Muse, but I've decided I'm actually going to use the crumb cake because I think that that will go slightly better. So again, you could ink this one up with the ink pad, or you can use your Stampin' Right markers. So just making sure that I've got plenty of ink on that one. Take off that little bit and then stamp it down. And there we've got Just For You with a little butterfly. And then to finish it off, I'm just going to add one of the butterflies to the inside of the card. Obviously this one's going to stay flat. You could add in any kind of sentiment or a stamp into the middle, so happy birthday, happy anniversary, just for you, you know, anything that you really want to say. But very, very simple card, but really stunning. And here is another one that's just in a different colourway, and this one's using the Naturals Ivory cardstock, so it's already got speckles in it. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. There are a number of different ones on my website, so please visit. Thanks very much. Bye.